Sean Murray? What are you doing on my door?
Rurikhan, my friend, it's time.
Time? Time for what?
It's time to return to No Man's Sky.
I'm not ready, Sean.
I don't care that you are not ready. It's time.
Traveler.
No! You can't make me hear.
Resistance is futile. I already have you.
No Man's Sky is a game that was initially negatively received by the gaming community when it released back in 2016. The reasoning behind that, from my personal interpretation, was that when we initially got a hold of some No Man's Sky gameplay footage, the sheer promise and potential that that footage showed sent our expectations right through the roof. Hell, forget about the roof, it sent our expectations to the sky. No Man's Sky. Our expectations got shot out into space. I mean, you're talking about seeing yourself as a player from first-person perspective, walking around on the planet, and you see like these dinosaurs, and you were aware that all of this stuff was being procedurally generated, right? You see these dinosaurs, you see trees, you see beautiful landscapes, all like with bright colors and all of this stuff, which personally, I'm really into bright colors. I know that some people like more, pastel looking games, stuff like that. There's nothing wrong with it, but personally, I just love a good game that really makes good use of bright colors, and it has a decent looking art style to it, which definitely some of the first footage that we saw of No Man's Sky, it looked like incredibly promising. And then you see yourself in the first person walking around, you see these dinosaurs, you see your laser weapon, you mine some resources, then you jump on a ship, you take off from the planet, you go into space, and it's like, holy crap, and all these other ships show up, and you start thinking, ooh, multiplayer potential and all these things, right? The sheer promise of that initial gameplay footage that you got to see whenever they revealed new gameplay, it looked amazing. Again, everybody's expectations were just like, oh my god, all the things I'm going to be able to do in this game. This is like the last game I'm ever going to have to play. And then eventually we got the interviews with, interviewers asking for very specific features around No Man's Sky, and the answers that were given were very vague. And essentially, instead of a lot of us taking that as like, these answers are kind of vague, I'm not so sure about this, and I'm sure that some people looked at it like that, I feel like a majority of the gaming community is like, oh my god, they're not even telling us all the things that we're going to be able to do. It's going to be insane. The scale of this game is going to be on a magnitude that we can't even fathom. And now I know that there's even been like some of the stuff that the developers have said in those interviews that, when the first version of the game came out, a lot of those things didn't really materialize. Now you have to ask yourself, are these things that the developers, maliciously spoke about in a way to kind of like intentionally deceive people? Or were these things that were planned to be in the game but weren't really able to make the release date of the game? Like, one of the things that instantly comes to mind is the fact that there was an interview where, somebody specifically asked Sean Murray, like, hey, if I go to a planet and another player happens to be on that same planet, I know the galaxy is massive, the chances of that happening are close to zero, blah, 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 but if that happens, will we be able to see each other? And I think that he said yes. This is an interview that I actually didn't really see ahead of the release of the game, but I saw it afterwards because people linked it to me. And there was another interview that he did where basically when asked about multiplayer, he specifically said something like, oh, this isn't going to be a game where you just like boot up to play multiplayer with your friends. So that was the interview that I actually saw. So to me, I never really looked at No Man's Sky, the release version at least, as a multiplayer game. So I guess I wasn't as disappointed as a lot of people were. But, clearly there were a lot of expectations that were set, and then eventually when the game released, a lot of those expectations weren't met. Now again, like I said, when I initially played the game, I actually enjoyed it. I didn't think it was something that completely blew me out of the water or whatever, but I remember talking with Hengist about it, and both of us were kind of enjoying the game, just like playing through it, grabbing we were basically playing this huge sandbox where you could go from planet to planet, collect resources, do stuff, trade, and buy ships with more inventory to be able to do these things more effectively. I thought it was somewhat enjoyable, but it wasn't a game that I really stuck with because I think that at that point I went on vacation or something. And then by the time I came back, there was another game that I needed to cover. So I kind of fell off of it, right? And then eventually I jumped back into it later and I played it for a whole bunch of hours, enjoyed that, and then fell off of it again. And now more recently I jumped back into it. And the main reason that caused me to jump back into No Man's Sky was because I received the PlayStation VR 2 from PlayStation Portugal, and No Man's Sky updated itself to allow the use of PlayStation VR 2, and I was like, this seems like something interesting for me to check out, so I checked it out on PSVR 2. And let me tell you, I think it might be my favorite game out of all of the games that are currently available on the PSVR 2. I think that No Man's Sky might be my favorite one because most of the games that you currently have on VR, they're kind of like on rails in a certain way. Like you look at Call of the Mountain, it is very much kind of like a linear experience, right? It looks good, it plays good, but it's mostly a linear experience. Go here, do this, go here, do that. You look at Star Wars game, kind of like the same thing. You look at something like Moss, even though Moss is a gorgeous game, love it. But it's still also like, hey, go here, do this, kind of like a linear experience, right? And No Man's Sky is one of the few things that you can do in PSVR 2 that is kind of like, there's no rails here. There's nothing holding you back. Just do whatever you want. You want to, pilot an exocraft thing? Go for it. You want to pilot a ship? Go for it. But after I experienced it with PSVR 2, I was like, you know what? I feel like getting back into this game because they've added so many things. To give you guys an idea, I actually started doing the current expedition, which by the time this video goes live, the expedition will have finished, or we'll have maybe 1 or 2 days left to finish, which by the way, I still hope that most of you that are even considering playing No Man's Sky get to play the expedition, because I was reading through forums and I was asking hey, should I do the expedition? So I started a brand new save to get back into the game. And a lot of people were saying, oh no, you should, don't play the expedition right now, play your save. And I was like, no, expedition was great because it got me almost like a super quick tutorial on some of the things that I needed to be aware of, like base building, collecting copper. That's pretty important as it turns out in the game. It's kind of like a base material for most of the things that you're going to be working on. So it kind of gave me the foundation that I needed to then go back and start on a new save. And not just that, but if you actually complete the expedition, you get this giga powerful spaceship, which I actually equipped on my save, and then I unequipped it because I was like, this kind of breaks progression for me to use this ship this early in the game. So I actually stored that ship away, and I'll be getting it later because I want to actually experience progression of going through a whole bunch of different ships and stuff like that, because that's just a fun thing for me. Finding crashed ships, trying to maybe salvage those, buying new ships, more interesting ships, and all of that jazz, right? But fundamentally, it got me completely hooked, and now I'm like, man, I want to see all the new things that they've added, just to kind of paint a picture of all of the major updates in No Man's Sky. So I actually pulled up the release log of No Man's Sky, and I'm going to be telling you guys, for those of you that maybe played No Man's Sky in the beginning and maybe you haven't touched it since and you have no idea what the hell is going on in this game, because right now, in my personal opinion, this is one of the most complete games that you can possibly play, and there's just so much value. Because here's an interesting thing about what the team behind No Man's Sky, LO Games, what they've done when they were heavily criticized by the community, because gaming community was not pleased, and they were like, what the hell is this? This is not what the idea that you sold us, is not the promise that you sold us. They didn't spend any time worrying about oh my god, everybody hates our game, this is a serious problem. No, they put their heads down and they went to work. They went to work. And what I'm going to tell you today is going to be all of the things that they've added into the game in the last 6 years and change. And I kid you not, this is nowhere close to being the same game. And I know that people have made videos talking about this in the past, but this is not even nowhere close to the same game. This is quite simply one of the most polished games that you can play today, in my personal opinion. Potentially maybe even the best space game that you can play today. And this is a game where they're we're not even done. There's more to come. And all of this was given to people I mean, I was going to say for free, but you have to have purchased the game, right? You need to have, there's that payment price. But what I'm saying is, like, besides the initial asking price, everything was given to players for free. And I kid you not, like, if you're someone who follows me for Monster Hunter content, you've gotten the equivalent of almost like 2, maybe even 3 G rank expansions to this game for free. So let's get started. I'm actually on the official No Man's Sky webpage. There's like a bunch of super detailed updates here. I'm not going to be going through every single one of them, but we're going to be going through like the big major ones. So one of the big major updates that they've done was the Foundation update. This was when they've added base building, and base building is actually something fairly complex. They've since then revamped the way that base building also works. It's much more streamlined. It's much more accessible for anybody that wants to get into base building, but you can basically build bases anywhere in any planet, so long as there's not already like a territory there that was claimed by another player. But the galaxy is vast. You're not going to be running into the same problem that you have in like Final Fantasy XIV, where it's like if you're trying to get into housing, good luck, right? That's not going to be a thing when it comes to No Man's Sky. You can just go in there, get your base going, and start working on stuff. You don't have to. None of it's really mandatory. I mean, there are portions that if you want to do the main storyline, you're going to have to like build a couple of structures, stuff like that, but this is not too complicated. So if you want to focus too much on base building, it's not a big deal, but it is pretty cool. The crazy amount of stuff that you get to do with base building is wild. Then you had the Pathfinder update, which now introduced planetary vehicles. Now, for some of you, you might be wondering, well, what's the advantage of planetary vehicles? Because I remember that is what I was wondering. Like, why would I want these planetary vehicles when I can just fly? I can fly. Why would I want vehicles? For starters, I mean, you can have those for fun, because eventually they even added stuff to like allow you to do races and stuff like that. But these vehicles, their advantage from what I can tell right now is that whenever you are flying a spaceship, if you are landing in a position that is not like a trading post or something that is kind of like designed for your ship to land, you're going to be spending fuel to take off every single time. Whereas these vehicles, you can just drive them everywhere in the planet. So this is like if you're trying to explore a planet, one of these vehicles will actually consume way less resources to operate than, just running everywhere on a spaceship. Not to mention that exploring the planet like this also has other advantages, and on top of it, their inventory is bigger than traditional spaceships. Now, it's also important to mention that these vehicles, very much like everything else in No Man's Sky, have their own tech upgrades and stuff like that. So like you have tech upgrades for, say, your exosuit, you have tech upgrades for your inventory, you have tech upgrades for your multi-tool, which is your weapon, you have tech upgrades for your spaceship, and now you also have tech upgrades for all of these different exocrafts, which, by the way, there's quite a few of them, and I believe in the recent update they've even added like mechas to exocraft things that you can craft, which is pretty wild. Then we had the Atlas Rises update, which they've overhauled the central storyline to be a little bit better. They've also added something which is portals. The reason portals were added actually was initially to make it easier. At least I think it was initially to make it easier for players to kind of like find one another in the galaxy and teleport to different locations. They've also added a procedural mission system, which, in case you're wondering what that is about, it's like you can actually go to a space station, take on missions so that you can you can get rewards from doing those missions. So that's another thing. It's almost like side quests, essentially, so that you don't just do sandbox stuff. Then they added No Man's Sky Next, which basically made the game actually fully multiplayer compatible. It allows you near unlimited base building. You get the freighter armadas, which I still don't have a freighter in my current save, but I used to have one in a previous save that I had. And it's very useful. You can basically summon up your armada to when you're in a planet. And now there's even like tools that basically allow you to deploy an exocraft from your armada. Almost like if you think about Mass Effect, you had the Mako come down from the ship, from the Normandy. And it's kind of like that, because currently if you want to have an exocraft, you need to build like a base thing on a planet. But with certain tech upgrades, you don't even need to build anything on the planet. You can just have your freighter armada arrive, and you just like deploy my exocraft. And you get the exocraft and you go in there. I haven't done it. I don't know if it actually falls or if it just materialized. Probably just materialized, but you guys get the idea. I think that is a really cool concept. Then we have, there were a bunch of like quality of life patches. There's the Abyss update. So in the Abyss update, they basically introduce aquatic environments, which up until this point, I'm guessing that you couldn't actually go underwater. And now you can go underwater, you can explore underwater, and they also put like vehicles underwater. Of course, you have like these mini subs that you can get around in, and they put all kinds of like life species and stuff underwater and treasures for you to go and find. So like they just add underwater. So now on top of all of the other things that you get, you also have underwater on all of the planets, which gives you a lot more stuff to explore. Then in here with the Visions update, they've included new planetary biomes, new colorful worlds, new fauna, flora, archaeology. Again, more stuff for you to do into the game in Visions. Then in Beyond, they expanded the multiplayer experience to become even more, like, to give you guys an idea, right now in the game, I don't know if this is the update where they did it, but right now in the game, if you want to do multiplayer, after you do just a little bit of the main storyline, you can just straight up summon something which is called the Anomaly. Doesn't actually cost any resources or anything, and you just go in there, and once you go into the Anomaly, it's a multiplayer hub, and you can meet people there, and you can join your friends there, and you have multiplayer specific missions that you go on that give you like rare resources and stuff like that. So yeah, it's wild. And this was also when they first introduced virtual reality. This was for PSVR 1. Just to give you an idea of how far back this update was made, this was for the original PSVR, not even PSVR 2, this is PSVR 1. Okay? They've added new tech trees, new upgrades, and a bunch of whole other stuff, right? And including, since they have the picture here of players mounting animals, you can actually mount animals in the game right now. You can tame them, and after you tame them, you get to ride them, which is something that I've done in VR as well, which is pretty friggin' wild. And then a bunch of more patches to kind of like fix issues and more quality of life. Then they had the synthesis, where they've basically listened to a whole bunch of community requests and whatnot, and quality of life stuff, and basically just improve the game to the nth degree. I'm not sure if synthesis was when they added what are they called, the biological ships or whatever, but those are also in the game right now. Oh no, this was when it was the living ship. Explore space from a different perspective with the living ship update, introducing a new class of biological ship, new story mission, mysterious space encounters, space NPCs, and more. So again, more content for you, completely for free. Then we have another one, the Exomech. Oh wow, I thought the Exomechs were introduced more recently. Looks like these have been around for a while, actually. Damn. Okay. And more exocraft technologies, improvements to base building, and a whole bunch of more stuff. So now there's even mechs in the game that you can go and get. Then they introduced crossplay. So right now, you can crossplay the game across all platforms, even though right now they just say PC, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One. Currently, it's PC, PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, Xbox One S, Series X, Xbox One X, all of it, and Nintendo Switch. All these platforms have crossplay. However, they do not have cross progression, which is a damn shame. It's like, oh, you're so close. Because like I wish I'd be able to play it on my PlayStation, because that's where I have VR for whenever I want to jump into VR, and then bring that save over to my Switch whenever I'm out and about so that I could play the same save. That would be like, bro, if they pull that one off, I'm like, chef's kiss. Right, that's the only thing that I really want. But still, crossplay, really big deal, because everybody wants crossplay whenever you have a game that has multiplayer. So that's pretty cool. Then they've updated that and patched it to make sure that everything is running smoothly. Now they also have haunted wreckage of derelict freighters. They call this update Desolation, introducing procedurally generated freighters, more story content, combat improvements, freighter customization, and more. The freighters are now fully customizable. They have their own tech trees and all of these things, and you can even build them like bases. So like inside these massive spaceships, you can basically customize their interiors like it's your own moving base, and that is one of the things that I personally want to do. Then we have with update 3.0 Origins, dramatically expands the universe No Man's Sky, explore stranger, richer, and more varied universe with deeper planetary diversity, dramatic new terrain. So they basically updated a lot of their procedural generations to make things better. Host of new creatures, new weather conditions, colossal buildings, and much, much more. And then little bit further ahead, Next Generation. Graphically enhanced and smoother No Man's Sky. So basically this was for next gen. As you can see it now, showcases PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Series X and S, as well as enhancements that were available to PC players. Continue your journey in a universe with bigger bases, lusher planets, more players, faster warp speeds, and more free for all existing players. Again, all this stuff free. So if you owned the game back then, all of this stuff you have for free. You don't need to update, you don't need to do anything. Companions. Adopt an alien creature and explore the universe side by side in the Companions update. So basically you now can tame pets and you can have pets. You can genetically modify their eggs and breed unique, never before seen creations. I don't even know what the system is. I haven't even interfaced with it at all. But basically, you now also have pets and companions. Expeditions. So this was something that they started working on a while back, which is like I was telling guys I did an expedition. 3.3 Expeditions introduces a brand new way to play No Man's Sky, start a fresh journey to brand new game mode, master a unique set of challenges with revitalized mission mechanics, earn exclusive new rewards, visit bustling hub worlds, and much, much more. So Expeditions, as far as I can tell, seems to only be a multiplayer experience. So if you're playing offline, I don't think you get to do Expeditions because it always seemed like there were players jumping in and out of my game when I was doing Expeditions. But basically Expeditions is like you do start the game fresh. It's almost like Seasons, right, in other video games. But the idea is that you have your main save where you've been playing this whole time. Then you jump into an expedition and you start fresh for a little bit. The idea is not this becomes your main save. The idea is like this is just a series of activities that you will do. And then when you complete all of those activities, they're going to give you rewards that you can go and collect on your main save. So this is a temporary adventure that you go on. And like I said, I had a blast playing the recent expedition, which was the Utopia expedition, and I learned tons. And it's not particularly hard. Like, it took me 11 hours, but experienced players finished in like 5 hours, I believe. So, you know, whatever. And then we had Expedition 2 update, Beachhead. This is when you could get the Normandy. I'm hoping that this expedition comes back around because I want to get the Normandy as my frigate. That's just the way that I want to roll, right? But yeah, if you do the Beachhead expedition, you would get the Normandy SR1 to your fleet, which is pretty friggin' sweet. It's not a ship, by the way. You don't actually fly this. This is something that works as like a mothership, so you can dock ships in there and stuff like that, and then you take out your ships and you warp this into other systems. This is kind of like your big support frigate vessel is the idea. But I still want to have that as like my big capital ship, right? Then you had Prisms dramatically refreshes No Man's Sky experience with a range of new visual features, technologies, again, improving the procedural generation, making it more diverse, better worlds and stuff like that. And you can see that there's like a massive sandworm here. I've been on a planet when I was doing the recent expedition where there were sandworms flying around. I think it was wild. But yeah, more biome detail, improved lighting, new skies, new warp effects, creature fur, and a host more besides. Then you have Frontiers. Become the overseer of your very own procedural generation alien settlement in 3.6. I don't even know what this is. Looks like make choices, guide your citizens, develop new structures, defend people from the Sentinels, or take advantage of a massive overall base building, construct your own dream base. So it seems like you'll be able to take over alien settlements. I didn't even know this was a thing. Dude, there's still so much for me to explore in this game. This is wild. Expedition 3, Cartographers, includes a number of stability, gameplay fixes, introduces third expedition. So this was another expedition that they included, deep exploration of a single planet, where your technologically unique starship will require specialist attention to repair and launch into space. So this is probably something that you used a lot of like exocrafts and stuff like that, which are like the land vehicles. Then on 3.7, introduced the fourth community expedition, where you hunt titanic sandworms, cleanse planets of cursed dust, reveal history, the dark cult. So even new stories they're putting in here. Ultimately confront the Atlas. This is our first expedition, fish your narrative. Bro, I want to do this one. They really need to bring back some of these expeditions, man. I missed out on so much. Expeditions Revisited. This, oh yeah, they did this. I think that this was because the game came out on the Switch or something. And so they basically just gave everyone the expeditions to do all over again. This is the one that I missed. I hope that they do this again at some point, because I do want to go and do all of the expeditions. Then we had Update Sentinel. Fight alongside your own personal robotic companions and battle an array of new foes in the Sentinel update, introducing total overhaul of weapon systems, new lore and stories. Again, more lore, more stories, more stuff to do. Crazy, all of it so far for free. Outlaws. This was when they introduced like some system that allows you to be an outlaw. There are now outlaw systems. There's the ability for you to recruit people for a squadron of pilots. Like literally, you know how you have sometimes when you see a ship come into a space station in No Man's Sky, you can talk to the person that is operating that ship and try hiring them to become a part of your squadron, and then they will warp in when you are fighting in space. So you can build like your own squadron team of, teammates to help you out. Expedition 7 Leviathan. Again, this is another one of the big biological ships that I never got around to doing. I'm hoping that I'll eventually be able to do this stuff. Escape the time loop by following a trail of your previous iterations, absorbing memories, and working together as a community. Like, this seems like so much fun. So much stuff that I missed out on. Endurance. Dramatically expand your capital ship. Again, this is more customization for your freighters and all of that stuff. Frigate base building, exterior platform. So you'll be able to even customize not just the inside, but the outside of your frigate ship, which is freaking wild. Then we have the Switch update. This is when it launched on Nintendo Switch, which includes all of the features. By the way, the game runs pretty decently on the Switch. Like, it targets 30 FPS, sometimes goes a little bit lower. The biggest complaint that I have about the Switch version is that I feel like the audio sampling is a little bit lower quality, and that's kind of like something that keeps me from playing it. I own like the physical version of the Switch, but like the audio is such a big part of the experience in No Man's Sky that like the fact that on the Switch it's slightly lower samples is a big problem. Waypoint update, access to Universe No Man's Sky from anywhere. So this is like, again, overhauled a whole bunch of more stuff, cross-play across everything, added new milestones, journey cataloging, wild stuff. And then we're finally coming up on, we had holiday expeditions. They did all of the expeditions again. And then eventually we get to the Fractal update, which we finally got to the current update that we're at in the game with, there's just a bunch more stuff to do. It's like this, I can't even keep up. This is when they've done the last expedition, which is the Utopia expedition. That's the one that I did, which gives you a ship. It's this ship that you guys see right here, which resembles a little bit of like the speeders that they were using on Hoth back in episode, I think it's 5, right? Episode 5, Empire Strikes Back. So, and this ship is pretty decent. You basically get this ship on your main save when you are done with the expedition. But basically, all of this to say what? Right now, with the amount of content that this game has, if you are someone that kind of likes this type of thing, which is kind of like space, survival, base building, all of that good stuff, even multiplayer, you can have multiplayer with your friends. It's super easy to team up in multiplayer right now. And again, you can do it from any platform. If your friend happens to be on Xbox, happens to be on the Switch, on PC, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You can just like group up together, go have fun. It is wild, and I'm planning on potentially streaming the game on the channel as well, so we'll see how that pans out. But goddamn, in 2023, this is potentially one of the biggest value propositions when it comes to video games. And it is wild that I hadn't played No Man's Sky for so long, and I'm kind of like completely hooked back on it. But let me know what your experience is like. I just wanted to tell you guys a little bit about all of the things that were added, and hopefully convince you that if you already have No Man's Sky, because a lot of people bought No Man's Sky back in the day and then just like put it down, never touch it again. If you already have it, like check it out again. Might be a good time. Anyway, that's it. I just want to talk a little bit about No Man's Sky. Thank you all very much for watching. If you guys enjoyed this video, hit it up with a like. If you did not enjoy this video, the dislike feedback is important. I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay strong, stay safe. Peace out.